I'm live. I did it. Oops. Wait, I mean, I fucked up the computer and where it goes. Hello, everybody. Well, two of you. Tēnā korua. Tēnā koe is hello to one. Tēnā korua, hello to two. Oh, tēnā koe. Hey, how you doing? I'm wearing a very, very soft cardigan, or shawl. So I'm doing better than yesterday. But yeah, let's have a little bit of a recap. I'm actually on time with the stream for once. I'm going to stop describing who Jonathan Harker is because it's just too basic at this point. He's in Castle Dracula at the moment. He's had what he thinks is a strange dream, but it was, obviously not a dream about, why does it do this to me? Why does it jump back to the chapter bit only when I want to read it a lot, like live right now? Yeah. He is a golden retriever, but English. Oh, he wouldn't be a corgi. He would be. I actually don't know. I'm still thinking. He's just trying to be polite. He's like one of those really big dogs that's just so gentle. Except he kind of sucks and can't do anything. I'm sorry, I'm trying to find my place because we were in the middle of chapter 3. Yes. Oh, that's why I don't approve of small dogs. Oh, apparently the name that I have been pronouncing as Zekali is Siki. Yeah, how could I have known that? Except by Googling before I said it 1,000 times in a YouTube video forever. Interestingly, that is Louis C.K.'s actual real last name. So, yeah. He's a Dracula. He's got hairy palms, allegedly. Oh no, we're into chapter 14. Yep. We're into chapter 14. We're into chapter 4. Jono got lost in the castle. He fell asleep. He's trying to find a way out because he knows he's a prisoner. He fell asleep in a room that he thinks was probably used by ladies at some point because it's slightly more comfortable than the rest of the castle. And he wakes up to find 3 vampire babes. Sort of, they're into it, he thinks. And he's like, oh my, I'm a Victorian and yet I am also into it. Oh no. And then Dracula bursts in and he's like, fuck you, that's my guy. And they're like, you've never been in love. And he goes, I have been in love. I was in love with all you at one point. Anyway, after I'm done with this guy, you can have him, essentially. And I'm sorry, I've taken 2 different antihistamines, which I don't think you should do, but it still won't stop. Right. So he says, once I'm done with Jono, you can have him. But right now he's mine. And then he gives them a baby in a bag, and they bite it and eat it. That is the night of the 24th. Why does this happen only when I go live on YouTube? Is there something going on with the light that I'm allergic to? But yeah, that was the 24th of June. Oh, and also before this with the vampire babes, before Jonathan found the vampire babes, the Count made him write letters that essentially said, I'm about to leave Castle Dracula. I have left Castle Dracula. I am in a completely other town and on my way to England. so that, when he inevitably goes missing because he got fed to Dracula's 3 awful wives, people won't come looking for him at Castle Dracula. I'm so sorry about the sniffling. I haven't been sniffling at all until the video started. One of you is doing something. I don't know what it is. Oh, and I said I wouldn't start reading until 1, so we're 3 minutes out. That's okay. We can talk about vampires. Still using the hair donut, but I made my hair a little bit more Victorian. Just a little bit. Pin and twist. Not bad. What else is relevant to tell you about Dracula before we begin reading? Oh yeah, if you missed it, Dracula. Jono looked out of his window one night and he saw Dracula climb headfirst down the castle wall like a lizard. That kind of freaked him out. So yeah, the Castle Dracula is on the side of a cliff. He can't get out the front, obviously, and now there's a band of various, Romany people. It is, but it's not pointing right at me. It's making me sniffly without, staring into the sun so you can sneeze. Right. Fuck it, we're a minute early, doesn't matter. Because I want us to pick up on the 25th of June in the morning. Because that's my birthday. It's the most wonderful day in the whole world. Yeah. I think Jonathan probably did what he was sent to do to help acclimate the Count to English society before he arrived. And we know that Dracula has a ton of books and magazines and periodicals and stuff. So he's been doing his research. Yeah. Noted himbo Bram Stoker. Yeah, exactly. And also Dracula walking around in the sun. I remember in the Bram Stoker's Dracula, the good one, the hilarious one. People are like, oh, Gary Oldman, he's standing out in the sunlight. That's not what vampires do. Yes, it is. In this. Yeah, he has money. If you're poor and you act like Dracula, you are going to get, in this time period, probably hanged. They don't really want to spend time treating you. If you act like Dracula and you're super rich, you are just eccentric and fun. What an alien mindset. How could we possibly... I'm so sorry about the sniffing. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's my diffuser. Maybe it's Maybelline. 25th of June, morning. No man knows till he has suffered from the night how sweet and how dear to his heart and eye the morning can be. Ain't that the goddamn truth? When the sun grew so high this morning that it struck the top of the great gateway opposite my window, the high spot which it touched seemed to me as if the dove from the ark had lighted there. My fear fell from me as if it had been a vaporous garment which dissolved in the warmth. I must take action of some sort while the courage of the day is upon me. Last night, one of my post-dated letters went to post, the first of that fatal series, which is to blot out the very traces of my existence from the earth. Let me not think of it. Action. It has always been at night time that I have been molested or threatened, or in some way in danger or in fear. I have not yet seen the Count in the daylight. Can it be that he sleeps when others wake, that he may be awake whilst they sleep? That could be it. If I could only get into his room, but there is no possible way. The door is always locked. No way for me. Yes, there is a way, if one dares to take it. Where his body has gone, why may not another body go? I have seen him myself crawl from his window. Why should not I imitate him and go in by his window? The chances are desperate, but my need is more desperate still. I shall risk it. At the worst, it can only be death, and a man's death is not a calf's, and the dreaded hereafter may still be open to me. God help me in my task. Goodbye, Mina, if I fail. Goodbye, my faithful friend and second father. Goodbye, all, and last of all, Mina. Oh, that's nice. I mean, his logic is not good. He knows Dracula is a supernatural being. Yeah, it doesn't follow that you can do all the things he can do. But, same day later, I have made the effort, and God, helping me, have come safely back to this room. I must put down every detail in order. I went whilst my courage was fresh, straight to the window on the south side, and at once got outside on the narrow ledge of stone which runs around the building on this side. The stones are big and roughly cut, and the mortar has by process of time been washed away between them. I took off my boots and ventured out on the desperate way. I looked down once, so as to make sure that a sudden glimpse of the awful depth would not overcome me, but after that kept my eyes away from it. I knew pretty well the direction and distance of the Count's window, and made for it as well as I could, having regard to the opportunities available. I did not feel dizzy. I suppose I was too excited. And the time seemed ridiculously short till I found myself standing on the window sill and trying to raise up the sash. I was filled with agitation, however, when I bent down and slid feet foremost in through the window. Then I looked around for the Count, but with surprise and gladness made a discovery. The room was empty. It was barely furnished with odd things which seemed to have never been used. The furniture was something the same style as that in the south rooms, and was covered in dust. Aha, Dracula is a girl's bedroom. He's got the same furniture as the girls have. No wonder he wants a new house. I looked for the key, but it was not in the lock, and I could not find it anywhere. The only thing I found was a great heap of gold in one corner. Gold of all kinds, Roman and British and Austrian and Hungarian and Greek and Turkish money, covered with a film of dust as though it had lain long in the ground. None of it that I noticed was less than 300 years old. There were also chains and ornaments, some jeweled, but all of them old and stained. Hi, Jesse. Oh, shout out to Alex, who cannot join us today. I'm thinking of you. Jesse, if you need to be caught up on, Jonathan Harker has climbed down the outside window of the castle over the incredibly high cliff, and he's gone into Dracula's bedroom. But Dracula's not there. Don't worry. At one corner of the room was a heavy door. I tried it, for since I could not find the key of the room or the key of the outer door, which was the main object of my search, I must make further examination, or all my efforts would be in vain. It was open, and led through a stone passage to a circular stairway, which went steeply down. I descended, minding carefully where I went, for the stairs were dark, being only lit by loopholes in the heavy masonry. At the bottom there was a dark tunnel-like passage, through which came a deathly, sickly odour, the odour of old earth newly turned. As I went through the passage, the smell grew closer and heavier. At last I pulled open a heavy door which stood ajar, and found myself in an old ruined chapel, which had evidently been used as a graveyard. The roof was broken, and in two places were steps leading to vaults, but the ground had recently been dug over, and the earth placed in great wooden boxes, manifestly those which had been brought by the Slovaks. There was nobody about, and I made search for any further outlet, but there was none. Then I went over every inch of the ground so as not to lose a chance. I went down even into the vaults, where the dim light struggled, although to do so was a dread to my very soul. Into two of these I went, but saw nothing except fragments of old coffins and piles of dust. In the third, however, I made a discovery. I don't know if anyone here is unfamiliar with the practice of vaults underneath a church where you put the dead people. Kind of like in Winterfell, where they all, hid in the vaults with the dead people from the guy who can raise the dead. Two smartest characters in the series went straight into the crypt. No worries. Doesn't matter. And the third, I made a discovery. There, in one of the great boxes, of which there were 50 in all, on a pile of newly dug earth lay the Count. He was either dead or asleep, I couldn't say which, for the eyes were open and stony, but without the glassiness of death, and the cheeks had the warmth of life through all their pallor. The lips were as red as ever. But there was no sign of movement, no pulse, no breath, no beating of the heart. I bent over him and tried to find any sign of life, but in vain. He could not have lain there long, for the earthly smell would have passed away in a few hours. By the side of the box was its cover, pierced with holes here and there. I thought he might have the keys on him, but when I went to search, I saw the dead eyes, and in them, dead though they were, such a look of hate, though unconscious of me or my presence, that I fled from the place, and leaving the Count's room by the window, crawled again up the castle wall. Regaining my room, I threw myself panting upon the bed and tried to think. ... He loves ending his diary entries with ... 29th of June. Today is the date of my last letter, and the Count has taken steps to prove that it was genuine, for again I saw him leave the castle by the same window and in my clothes. As he went down the wall, lizard fashion, I wished I had a gun or some lethal weapon that I might destroy him, but I fear that no weapon wrought alone by man's hand would have any effect on him. I dared not wait to see him return, for I feared to see those weird sisters. I came back to the library and read there till I fell asleep. I was awakened by the Count. He looked at me as grimly as a man can look as he said, "Tomorrow, my friend, we must part. You return to your beautiful England, I to some work which may have such an end that we may never meet. Your letter home has been dispatched. Tomorrow I shall not be here, but all shall be ready for your journey. In the morning come the Zagani," the word I didn't look up how to pronounce, "who have some labours of their own here, and also some Slovaks. When they have gone, my carriage will come for you, and shall bear you to the Borgo Pass to meet the diligence from Bukovina to Bistritz. But I am in hopes that I am in hopes that I shall see more of you at Castle Dracula." I suspected him, and determined to test his sincerity. Sincerity seems like a profanation of the word to write it in connection with such a monster. So I asked him point blank, "Why may I not go tonight?" "Because, dear sir, my coachman and horses are away on a mission." They're doing a side mission. "But I would walk with pleasure. I want to get away at once." He smiled, such a soft, smooth, diabolical smile that I knew that there was some trick behind his smoothness. He said, "And your baggage?" "I do not care about it. I can send for it some other time." The Count stood up and said, with a sweet courtesy which made me rub my eyes, it seemed so real, "You English have a saying which is close to my heart, for its spirit is that which rules our boyars. Welcome the coming, speed the parting guest. Come with me, my dear young friend. Not an hour shall you wait in my house against your will, though sad am I at your going, and that you so suddenly desire it. Come." With a stately gravity, he, with the lamp, preceded me down the stairs and along the hall. Suddenly he stopped. Hark! Close at hand came the howling of many wolves. It was almost as if the sound sprang up at the rising of his hand, just as the music of a great orchestra seems to leap under the baton of the conductor. After a pause of a moment, he proceeded, in his stately way, to the door, drew back the ponderous bolts, unhooked the heavy chains, and began to draw it open. To my intense astonishment, I saw that it was unlocked. Suspiciously, I looked all around, but could see no key of any kind. Yeah, I'm just going to take a second here. Jono, the Count is planning to murder me and throw me to his 3 awful wives. He said that he would send some guys tomorrow to take me to the Borgo Pass and, so I could go back to England. I didn't believe him. I tried to test his sincerity. Jono, you are so far past that. As the door began to open, the howling of the wolves without grew louder and angrier. Their red jaws, with champing teeth, and their blunt-clawed feet as they leapt, came in through the opening door. I knew then that to struggle at the moment against the Count was useless. With such allies as these at his command, I could do nothing. But still, the door continued slowly to open, and only the Count's body stood in the gap. Suddenly it struck me that this might be the moment and means of my doom. I was to be given to the wolves, and at my own instigation. There was a diabolical wickedness in the idea great enough for the Count, and as a last chance, I cried out, "Shut the door! I shall wait till morning," and covered my face with my hands to hide my tears of bitter disappointment. With one sweep of his powerful arm, the Count threw the door shut, and the great bolts clanged and echoed through the hall as they shot back into their places. I know that the repeated mentions of how strong and graceful Count Dracula is are about, he's a vampire, but I don't know, seems like somebody's got a crush on their own murderer. It's more common than you think. In silence, we returned to the library, and after a minute or two, I went to my own room. The last I saw of Count Dracula was his kissing his hand to me, with a red light of triumph in his eyes, and with a smile that Judas in hell might be proud of. I hope somebody describes my smile like that. That's wonderful. Also, kissing his hand to me, I think it's like that kind of thing, but I don't know. Maybe bros do kiss, blow kisses to each other all the time. I don't know. When I was in my room and about to lie down, I thought I heard a whispering at my door. I went to it softly and listened. Unless my ears deceived me, I heard the voice of the Count. Back to your own place. Your time has not yet come. Wait, have patience. Tonight is mine, tomorrow night is yours. There was a low, sweet ripple of laughter, and in a rage I threw open the door and saw without the 3 terrible women licking their lips. As I appeared, they all joined in a horrible laugh and ran away. I came back to my room and threw myself on my knees. It is then so near the end. Tomorrow? Tomorrow! Lord, help me, and those to whom I am dear. Stockhouse syndrome. Yeah, no, that's better than anything I can come up with at the moment. I think it's kind of funny that the vampire babes just kind of started laughing and ran away together. It's kind of endearing. 30th of June, morning. These may be the last words I shall ever write in this diary. I slept till just before the dawn, and when I woke, threw myself on my knees, for I determined that if death came, he would find me ready. He means he's gonna be praying. He doesn't think he can trade sexual favors with death. And even if you could, Jonathan Harker would not know that. Jonathan Harker would not understand really any of this. At last I felt that subtle change in the air and knew that the morning had come. Then came the welcome cockcrow, and I felt that I was safe. With a glad heart, I opened my door and ran down to the hall. I had seen that the door was unlocked, and now escape was before me. With hands that trembled with eagerness, I unhooked the chains and drew back the massive bolts. But the door would not move. Despair seized me. I pulled and pulled at the door and shook it till Massive as it was, it rattled in its casement. I could see the bolt shot. It had been locked after I left the Count. Then a wild desire took me to obtain that key at any risk, and I determined then and there to scale the wall again and gain the Count's room. He might kill me, but death now seemed the happier choice of evils. Without a pause, I rushed up to the east window and scrambled down the wall as before into the Count's room. It was empty, but that was as I expected. I could not see a key anywhere, but the heap of gold remained. I went through the door in the corner and down the winding stair and along the dark passage to the old chapel. I knew now well enough where to find the monster I sought. Oh, I love the idea of Jonathan Harker being stuck in Castle Dracula because he just cannot work out the whole push-pull door system. Ah, you've always been free to leave whenever you want, Jono. It's just... He pulls the door like a champion. He really tries. God bless him. The Count had a diabolical set of doors that rotated in order to keep one within, denying me egress from the castle I so desperately sought. That's not in there. It'd be funny, though. What if Castle Dracula had, like, roundy round doors? What if it had a slide? Oh, man. The horror genre is not dead. The great box was in the same place, close against the wall, but the lid was laid on it, not fastened down, but with the nails ready in their places to be hammered home. I knew I must reach the body for the key, so I raised the lid and laid it back against the wall. And then I saw something which filled my very soul with horror. That would be great. That would be so cool. There lay the Count, but looking as if his youth had been half renewed. For the white hair and moustache were changed to dark iron grey. The cheeks were fuller, and the white skin seemed ruby red underneath. The mouth was redder than ever, for on the lips were gouts of fresh blood, which trickled from the corners of the mouth and ran over the chin and neck. Even the deep, burning eyes seemed set among swollen flesh, for the lids and pouches underneath were bloated. It seemed as if the whole awful creature was simply gorged with blood. He lay like a filthy leech, exhausted with his repletion. That'd be great, wouldn't it? I really don't appreciate Jonathan Harker calling me out in such a way. It's not blood. There's crispy M&Ms. That's the problem. But it is a similar outcome. I shuddered as I bent over to touch him, and every sense in me revolted at the contact. But I had to search, or I was lost. The coming night might see my own body a banquet in a similar way to those horrid three. I felt all over the body, but no sign could I find of the key. Then I stopped and looked at the Count. There was a mocking smile on the bloated face which seemed to drive me mad. This was the being I was helping to transfer to London, where, perhaps for centuries to come, he might, amongst its teeming millions, satiate his lust for blood and create a new and ever-widening circle of semi-demons to batten on the helpless. The very thought drove me mad. A terrible desire came upon me to rid the world of such a monster. There was no lethal weapon at hand, but I seized a shovel which the workmen had been using to fill the cases, and lifting it high, struck with the edge downward at the hateful face. But as I did so, the head turned, and the eyes fell full upon me, with all their blaze of basilisk horror. The sight seemed to paralyze me, and the shovel turned in my hand and glanced from the face, merely making a deep gash above the forehead. The shovel fell from my hand across the box, and as I pulled it away, the flange of the blade caught the edge of the lid, which fell over again, and hid the horrid thing from my sight. The last glimpse I had was of the bloated face, blood-stained and fixed with a grin of malice which would have held its own in the nethermost hell. Oh, I've got one of those sneezes. Oh, I don't think it's going to happen. Let's just ignore it. Oh. I thought and thought what should be my next move, but my brain seemed on fire, and I waited with a despairing feeling growing over me. As I waited, I heard in the distance a song sung by merry voices coming closer, and through their song the rolling of heavy wheels and the cracking of whips. The Tsigani, why didn't I look up that one? And the Slovaks of whom the Count had spoken were coming. With a last look around and at the box which contained the vile body, I ran from the place and gained the Count's room, determined to rush out at the moment the door should be opened. With strained ears I listened, and heard downstairs the grinding of the key in the great lock and the falling back of the heavy door. There must have been some other means of entry, or someone had a key for one of the locked doors. Then there came the sound of many feet tramping and dying away in some passage which sent up a clanging echo. I turned to run down again towards the vault, where I might find the new entrance, but at the moment there seemed to come a violent puff of wind, and the door to the winding stair blew to with a shock that sent the dust from the lintels flying. When I ran to push it open, I found that it was hopelessly fast. I was again a prisoner, and the net of doom was closing around me more closely. I'm so sorry. It's it's a mystery. Someone's ill-wished me in some fashion. Me, I know. As I write, there is in the passage below a sound of many tramping feet and the crash of weights being set down heavily, doubtless the boxes with their freight of earth. There is a sound of hammering. It is the box being nailed down. Now I can hear the heavy feet tramping again along the hall, with many other idle feet coming behind them. The door is shut and the chains rattle. There is a grinding of the key in the lock. I can hear the key withdraw. Then another door opens and shuts. I hear the creaking of lock and bolt. Hark! In the courtyard and down the rocky way, the roll of heavy wheels, the crack of whips, and the chorus of the Scani as they pass into the distance. I am alone in the castle with these awful women. Fa! Mina is a woman, and there is naught in common. They are devils of the pit. Oh, little Johnny foreshadowing. I shall not remain alone with them. I shall try to scale the castle wall farther than I have yet attempted. I shall take some of the gold with me, lest I want it later. I may find a way from this dreadful place. And then away for home, away to the quickest and nearest train, away from this cursed spot, from this cursed land where the devil and his children still walk with earthly feet. At least God's mercy is better than that of these monsters, and the precipice is steep and high. At its foot a man may sleep, as a man. Goodbye, all. Mina. Yeah. Please, Mr. Hark was my father. I am Mr. Harker. This is my son, Jonathan Harkist. That's not even funny. This is dumb. Oh, just easily amused today. That was the end of chapter 4, but I am going to continue because it's only been like half an hour. And actually, chapter 5 begins with somebody else's point of view. So, that's really exciting for all of us. So let's just do that. Also, my roots that are regrowing, I can't figure out if they're ash blonde or if I'm actually getting greys at last. Like, if I have, I've earned them. So, chapter 5, letter from Miss Mina Murray to Miss Lucy Westenra. We're getting a Bechdel letter. It is from a woman to another woman. Very exciting. I'm sure they won't mention men at all. My dearest Lucy, Forgive my long delay in writing, but I have been simply overwhelmed with work. Oh, Mina is Jono's fiance. You knew that. The life of an assistant schoolmistress is sometimes trying. I am longing to be with you and by the sea where we can talk together freely and build our castles in the air. I've been working very hard lately because I want to keep up with Jonathan's studies, and I have been practicing shorthand very assiduously. When we are married, I shall be able to be useful to Jonathan, and if I can stenograph well enough, I can take down what he wants to say in this way and write it out for him on the typewriter, at which also I am practicing very hard. He and I sometimes write letters in shorthand, and he is keeping a stenographic journal of his travels abroad. When I am with you, I shall keep a diary in the same way. I don't mean one of those 2 pages to the week with Sunday squeezed in a corner diaries, but a sort of journal which I can write in whenever I feel inclined. I do not suppose there will be much of interest to other people, but it is not intended for them. I may show it to Jonathan some day if there is in it anything worth sharing, but it is really an exercise book. I shall try to do what I see lady journalists do. Lady journalists! Interviewing and writing descriptions and trying to remember conversations. I am told that with a little practice, one can remember all that goes on, all the one he has said during a day. However, we shall see. I will tell you of my little plans when we meet. I have just had a few hurried lines from Jonathan from Transylvania. He is well and will be returning in about a week. I am longing to hear all his news. It must be so nice to see strange countries. I wonder if I mean Jonathan and I, shall ever see them together. There is the 10 o'clock bell ringing. Goodbye. Your loving, Mina. P.S. Tell me all the news when you write. You have not told me anything for a long time. I hear rumours, and especially of a tall, handsome, curly-haired man? 3 question marks? That's right. Is there a man? Does Lucy Westenra have a fella? Well, letter. Lucy Westenra to Mina Murray, 17 Chatham Street, Wednesday. My dearest Mina, I must say you taxed me very unfairly with being a bad correspondent. I wrote to you twice since we parted, and your last letter was only your second. Besides, I have nothing to tell you. There is really nothing to interest you. Town was very pleasant just now, and we go a good deal to picture galleries and for walks and rides in the park. As to the tall, curly-haired man, I suppose it was someone who was with me at the last pop. Someone has evidently been telling tales. That was Mr. Homewood. He often comes to see us, and he and Mamma get on very well together. They have so many things to talk about in common. We met some time ago a man that would just do for you, if you were not already engaged to Jonathan. He is an excellent parti, being handsome, well off, and of good birth. He is a doctor and really clever. Just fancy, he is only 29, and he has an immense lunatic asylum all under his own care. Can I just say this is is it just funny, or is it extremely bitchy and funny that Lucy's like, oh, we met this guy who would be perfect for you. He's only 29 and he already has a huge lunatic asylum. I know. I know. Mr. Homewood introduced him to me, and he called here to see us and often comes now. I think he is one of the most resolute men I ever saw, and yet the most calm. He seems absolutely imperturbable. I can fancy what a wonderful power he must have over his patients. The great thing is that everything is true, if you feel it. An immense lunatic asylum. He has a curious habit of looking one straight in the face, as if trying to read one's thoughts. He tries this on very much with me, but I flatter myself he has got a tough nut to crack. I know that from my glass. Do you ever try to read your own face? I do, and I can tell you it is not a bad study, and gives you more trouble than you can well fancy if you have never tried it. He says that I afford him a curious psychological study, and I humbly think I do. I do not, as you know, take sufficient interest in dress to be able to describe the new fashions. Dress is a bore. That is slang again, but never mind. Arthur says that every day. There, it is all out. Mina, we have told all our secrets to each other since we were children. We have slept together and eaten together and laughed and cried together. And now, though I have spoken, I would like to speak more. Oh, Mina, couldn't you guess? I love him. I am blushing as I write, for although I think he loves me, he has not told me so in words. But oh, Mina, I love him. I love him. I love him. There, that does me good. I wish I were with you, dear, sitting by the fire, undressing as we used to sit, and I would try to tell you what I feel. I do not know how I am writing this even to you. I am afraid to stop, or I should tear up the letter, and I don't want to stop, for I do so want to tell you all. Let me hear from you at once, and tell me all that you think about it. Mina, I must stop. Good night. Bless me in your prayers, and Mina, pray for my happiness. Lucy. P.S. I need not tell you that this is a secret. Good night again. L. um, maybe. She either called herself vacant or very hard to read, I guess. You see, essentially, Dr. Seward can't read her poker face. I can't remember any of the other lyrics, so I'm not going to make any more jokes. Letter. Lucy Westenra to Mina Murray, 24th of May. My dearest Mina, thanks and thanks and thanks again for your sweet letter. It was so nice to be able to tell you and to have your sympathy. My dear, it never rains but it pours. How true the old proverbs are. Here am I, who shall be 20 in September, and yet I never had a proposal till today. Not a real proposal, and today I have had 3. Just fancy, 3 proposals in one day. Isn't it awful? I feel sorry, really and truly sorry for 2 of the poor fellows. Oh, Mina, I am so happy that I don't know what to do with myself. And 3 proposals. But for goodness sake, don't tell any of the girls, or they will be getting all sorts of extravagant ideas and imagining themselves injured and slighted if in their very first day at home they do not get 6 at least. Some girls are so vain. You and I, Mina dear, who are engaged and are going to settle down soon soberly into old married women, can despise vanity. Well, I must tell you about the 3, but you must keep it a secret, dear, from everyone, except, of course, Jonathan. You will tell him, because I would, if I were in your place, certainly tell Arthur. A woman ought to tell her husband everything. Don't you think so, dear? And I must be fair. Men like women, certainly their wives, to be quite as fair as they are. And women, I am afraid, are not always quite as fair as they should be. Well, my dear. Yeah. I'd forgotten that Lucy is only 20 at the moment. I mean, that kind of explains a lot, especially how she thinks she's probably a lot deeper than she is. That's not all 20-year-olds. Not all 20-year-olds. Right. Number 1 came just before lunch. I told you of him, Dr. John Seward, the lunatic asylum man, with the strong jaw and the good forehead. Oh, Lucy. She's a bitch for a forehead. He was very cool outwardly, but was nervous all the same. He had evidently been schooling himself as to all sorts of little things, and remembered them, but he almost managed to sit down on his silk hat, which men don't generally do when they are cool. And then when he wanted to appear at ease, he kept playing with a lancet in a way that made me nearly scream. He spoke to me, Mina, very straightforwardly. He told me how dear I was to him, though he had known me so little, and what his life would be with me to help and share him. He was going to tell me how unhappy he would be if I did not care for him, but when he saw me cry, he said that he was a brute and would not add to my present trouble. Then he broke off and asked if I could love him in time, and when I shook my head, his hands trembled, and then with some hesitation, he asked me if I cared already for anyone else. He put it very nicely, saying that he did not want to wring my confidence from me, but only to know, because if a woman's heart was free, a man might have hope. And then, Mina, I felt a sort of duty to tell him that there was someone. I only told him that much, and then he stood up, and he looked very strong and very grave as he took both my hands in his and said he hoped I would be happy, and that if I ever wanted a friend, I must count him one of my best. Oh, Mina, dear, I can't help crying, and you must excuse this letter being all blotted. Being proposed to is all very nice and all that sort of thing, but isn't it all a happy thing where you have to see a poor fellow, whom you know loves you honestly, going away and looking all broken-hearted, and to know that, whatever he may say at the moment, you are passing quite out of his life? My dear, I must stop here at present. I feel so miserable, though I am so happy. Oh, bit of a sweetie, really. Evening. Arthur has just gone, and I feel in better spirits than when I left off, so I can go on telling you about the day. Well, my dear, number 2 came after lunch. He is such a nice fellow, an American from Texas, and he looks so young and so fresh that it seems almost impossible that he has been to so many places and has had such adventures. I sympathize with poor Desdemona when she had such a dangerous stream poured in her ear, even by a black man. As Victorian racism goes, that is very, very mild. I suppose that we women are such cowards that we think a man will save us from fears, and we marry him. I know now what I would do if I were a man and wanted to make a girl love me. No, I don't, for there was Mr. Morris telling us his stories, and Arthur never told any, and yet. Okay, I should probably tell you right now because I'm gonna bring it up constantly as we're reading. But there is a theory. It's not an official theory at all, but there is a theory that Quincy Morris is in league with Dracula and has been since the beginning. Right? This is going to make sense. The more the further on in the book we get, the more sense it will make. And I mean, I'm thinking maybe he looks too young to have had so many exciting adventures. That might be a little hint. Maybe he's a vampire himself. I don't know. Oh, wait, no, he can't be. No. Okay, but people think he is definitely like Dracula's little pal, his little buddy. My dear, I am somewhat previous. Mr. Quincy P. Morris found me alone. It seems that a man always does find a girl alone. No, he doesn't, but Arthur tried twice to make it chance, and I helping him all I could. I am not ashamed to say it now. Oh, yeah, yeah. And him being a little too perfect adds weight to the idea that he's a he's a Draculite. Draculite is the word for anyone enthralled to a vampire. I just made it up, but it's real. I must tell you beforehand that Mr. Morris doesn't always speak slang. That is to say, he never does so to strangers or before them, for he is really well educated and has exquisite manners. But he found out that it amused me to hear him talk American slang, and whenever I was present and there was no one to be shocked, he said such funny things. I'm afraid, my dear, he has to invent it all, for it fits exactly into whatever else he has to say. But this is a way slang has. I do not know myself if I shall ever speak slang. I do not know if Arthur likes it, as I have never heard him use any as yet. Oh, I really need to watch Kingsman too. I'm going to try and remember that after this. Well, Mr. Morris sat down beside me and looked as happy and as jolly as he could, but I could see all the same that he was very nervous. He took my hand in his and said ever so sweetly, "Miss Lucy, I know I ain't good enough to regulate the fixin's of your little shoes, but I guess if you'll wait till you find a man that is, you will go join them 7 young women with the lamps when you quit." Biblical reference. "Won't you just hitch up alongside of me and let us go down the long road together, driving in double harness?" I'm not going to do Quincy's accent ever again. Um, but that bit was funny, so I decided to. Well, he did look so good humoured and so jolly that it didn't seem half so hard to refuse him as it did poor Dr. Seward. So I said as lightly as I could that I did not know anything of hitching and that I wasn't broken to harness at all yet. Then he said that he had spoken in a light manner and he hoped that if he had made a mistake in doing so on so grave, so momentous an occasion for him, I would forgive him. He really did look serious when he was saying it, and I couldn't help feeling a bit serious too. I know, Mina, you will think me a horrid flirt, though I couldn't help feeling a sort of exultation that he was number 2 in one day. And then, my dear, before I could say a word, he began pouring out a perfect torrent of love-making, laying his very heart and soul at my feet. Love-making in this period means uh, talking about love, right? It means like flirting and talking about love. It does not mean what we I mean, it's still funny. He looked so earnest over it that I shall never again think that a man must be playful always and never earnest, just because he is merry at times. I suppose he saw something in my face which checked him, for he suddenly stopped, and said with a sort of manly fervour that I could have loved him for if I had been free, "Lucy, you are an honest-hearted girl, I know. I should not be here speaking to you as I am now if I did not believe you clean grit right through to the very depths of your soul. Tell me, like one good fellow to another, is there anyone else that you care for? And if there is, I'll never trouble you a hair's breadth again, but will be, if you will let me, a very faithful friend." My dear Mina, why are men so noble when we women are so little worthy of them? Ugh! Why are men so noble when we women are so little worthy of them? Here was I almost making fun of this great-hearted true gentleman. I burst into tears. I'm afraid, my dear, you will think this a very sloppy letter in more ways than one. And I really felt very badly. Why can't they let a girl marry 3 men, or as many as want her, and save all this trouble? But this is heresy, and I must not say it. Why can't a girl marry 3 men? You get it, Lucy. I am glad to say that, though I was crying, I was able to look into Mr. Morris's brave eyes, and I told him out straight, "Yes, there is someone I love, though he has not told me yet that he even loves me." I was right to speak to him so frankly, for quite a light came into his face, and he put out both his hands and took mine. I think I put them into his, and said in a hearty way, "That's my brave girl. It's better worth being late for a chance of winning you than being in time for any other girl in the world. Don't cry, my dear. If it's for me, I'm a hard nut to crack, and I take it standing up. If that other fellow doesn't know his happiness, well, he better look for it soon, or he'll have to deal with me. Little girl, your honesty and pluck have made me a friend, and that's rarer than a lover. It's more unselfish, anyhow. My dear, I'm going to have a pretty lonely walk between this and Kingdom Come. Won't you give me one kiss? It'll be something to keep off the darkness now and then. You can, if you like, for that other good fellow. He must be a good fellow, my dear, and a fine fellow, or you could not love him. He hasn't spoken yet." That quite won me, Mina, for it was brave and sweet of him, and noble, too, to a rival, wasn't it? And he's so sad. So I leant over and kissed him. He stood up with my 2 hands in his, and as he looked down into my face, I'm afraid I was blushing very much, he said, "Little girl, I hold your hand, and you've kissed me, and if these things don't make us friends, nothing ever will. Thank you for your sweet honesty to me, and goodbye." He wrung my hand, and taking up his hat, went straight out of the room without looking back, without a tear or a quiver or a pause, and I am crying like a baby. Oh, why must a man like that be made unhappy when there are lots of girls about who would worship the very ground he trod on? I know I would if I were free. Only I don't want to be free. My dear, this quite upsets me, and I feel I cannot write of happiness just at once after telling you about it, and I don't wish to tell of the number 3 until it can be all happy. Ever your loving, Lucy. P.S. Oh, about number 3. I needn't tell you of number 3, need I? Besides, it was all so confused. It seemed only a moment from his coming into the room till both his arms were round me and he was kissing me. I am very, very happy, and I don't know what I have done to deserve it. I must only try in the future to show that I am not ungrateful to God for all his goodness to me in sending me such a lover, such a husband, and such a friend. Goodbye. So those are Lucy's letters with her 3 proposals. Yeah, Bram Stoker was extremely horny for the cowboy. He's so hot and he's so nice as well. What a fantastic guy. It's I mean, Mina is already engaged, but it is still very bitchy of Lucy to be going. Like it's just so sad that all these guys want to hook up with me when there are so many girls out there that don't have any guys. And these are high quality guys. These are like the best dudes you can get. And they all want to marry me. And it's like so sad when I have to say they can't. They're going to have to like marry. I mean, other girls are pretty too, probably. I cannot tell. Like, I can't tell if it's meant to be sort of naivety or she's just so pleased with herself, or if she's kind of trying to be bitchy to Mina because Mina got engaged first. It's just not clear. It's up to you, basically. You know, mm. I'm going to finish off chapter 5. Brokefang Mountain. Yeah, that's where Quincy Morris and Dracula met. And oh man, Brokeback Mountain. Like if it's on TV, I can't not watch it. It's like Titanic. If it's on TV, I'm flipping through the channels and I see it. I just sit through all of it, and then I felt really sad afterwards. And I have no intention of changing my behavior at all. But yeah, now excitingly, we cut to another point of view. And I know there's some contention over Dr. Seward versus Dr. Seward. I'm just going to call him Dr. Seward because that was what I did the first time. Dr. Seward's diary, kept in phonograph. He records it onto a phonograph. 25th of May, ebb tide and appetite today. Cannot eat, cannot rest, so diary instead. Since my rebuff of yesterday, I have a sort of empty feeling. Nothing in the world seems of sufficient importance to be worth the doing. As I knew that the only cure for this sort of thing was work, I went down amongst the patients. I picked out one who has afforded me a study of much interest. He is so quaint that I am determined to understand him as well as I can. Today I seem to get nearer than ever before to the heart of his mystery. I questioned him more fully than I had ever done, with a view to making myself master of the facts of his hallucination. In my manner of doing it, there was, I now see, something of cruelty. I seemed to wish to keep him to the point of his madness, a thing which I avoid with the patients as I would the mouth of hell. Memo. Under what circumstances would I not avoid the pit of hell? Omnia Romae venalia sunt. Hell has its price. If there be anything behind this instinct, it will be valuable to trace it afterwards accurately. So I'd better commence to do so. Therefore, R. M. Renfield, ATAT, aged 59. Sanguine temperament, great physical strength, morbidly excitable, periods of gloom ending in some fixed idea which I cannot make out. I presume that the sanguine temperament itself and the disturbing influence end in a mentally accomplished finish. A possibly dangerous man, probably dangerous if unselfish. In selfish men, caution is as secure an armour for their foes as for themselves. What I think of on this point is when self is the fixed point, the centripetal force is balanced with the centrifugal. When duty, a cause, etc., is the fixed point, the latter force is paramount, and only accident or a series of accidents can balance it. Basically, basically he's saying that he hopes Renfield is selfish because then he maybe won't eat people because he'll be worried that they'll catch and hang him. But if he's unselfish and he believes he needs to eat people for a good cause, then he'll probably just go straight ahead and do it. Sanguine temperament. Danny! Oh, Danny, you broke my heart. You're breaking my heart right now as we speak. Actually, I don't know. It's in a jar somewhere. Danny, you've arrived in time to hear the very last bit. Like, the very, very last bit. But, I'll be hanging out with you tomorrow for D&D, so it's all good. I would offer to read a second chapter, but I'm tired, hungry. Basically, Basically, Jono's fiancée, Mina, has a friend called Lucy. Lucy has been proposed to 3 times in one day by Dr. Seward, a man who is 29 and already runs an immense lunatic asylum. He's a catch. Quincy Morris, the cowboy, who is unrealistically handsome and noble and brave and fun and valiant. And Arthur Homewood, who, dunno, doesn't appear to have any particular personality at all. But Lucy was already in love with Arthur Homewood, so is it a coincidence that his title is the Honourable Arthur Homewood? I think his dad's like a lord or something, or like a baron or something. That's a bit mean. Letter. Quincy P. Morris to the Honourable Arthur Homewood, 25th of May. My dear Art, we've told yarns by the campfire in the prairies, and dressed one another's wounds after trying a landing at the Marquesas, and drunk healths on the shore of Titicaca. There are more yarns to be told, and other wounds to be healed, and another health to be drunk. Won't you let this be at my campfire tomorrow night? I have no hesitation in asking you, as I know a certain lady is engaged to a certain dinner party, and that you are free. There will only be one other, our old pal at the Courier, Jack Seward. He's coming too, and we both want to mingle our weeps over the wine cup, and to drink a health with all our hearts to the happiest man in all the wide world, who has won the noblest heart that God has made and the best worth winning. We promise you a hearty welcome and a loving greeting, and a health as true as your own right hand. We shall both swear to leave you at home if you drink too deep to a certain pair of eyes. Come, yours as ever and always, Quincy P. Morris. Telegram from Arthur Homewood to Quincy P. Morris, 26th May. Count me in every time. I bear messages which will make both your ears tingle. Art. That's the end of chapter 5. Yep, we've the end of chapter 4. Jono climbed down the side of the cliff from Castle Dracula and either escaped or died. He doesn't know which because we've been reading his diary. So, and then we kind of cut to Mina writing to her friend about, you know, how she's learning shorthand and typewriting and dictation and stuff so she can help Jono when she's married to him. So he'll have a secretary he doesn't have to pay. Okay, no, that's really cynical. She seems to love him. Ah, right. I think he's a Viscount. can't remember. I'm not sure. I used to know. But yeah. Mina writing to her friend Lucy, Lucy writing back to Mina with her 3 proposals, which I just covered, and then a couple of the guys being like, we're gonna get together and drink some beers and be like, boo, can't believe you got the girl, that fucking sucks, dude. And also the bit about Mr. Renfield, pretty important. But yeah, thank you all for joining me here. You can probably hear my voice going. Thank you all very much for joining me here. And Danny, I'm sorry you weren't here, but yeah, I will see you tomorrow. And I will get back to Marjorie Kemp. I've just been having a little bit of a rough time, and Dracula it's so fast paced and fun and stupid, and it's just a little bit more fun at the moment. That's all. What is it? Oh man, this angle I've been at makes it like I've got an enormous under neck. That's my full neck. That's that bit. Sorry. Thank you all for being here today. It was nice, and I'll see you not tomorrow, but the day after. Thank you very much. Bye.